How's it looking out there, Steve? T-Rex? A little chilly, but not cold enough for snow. Coastal flood advisory, new moon, high tide in a couple of hours. I did notice yesterday that Steve didn't come out, did he? The tide was incredibly low yesterday afternoon, so when you have an incredibly low tide, it's usually followed by a fairly high tide. Gotta hide from the wind. It's from the northeast to north. It was about 39 degrees when woke up. What was it, about 4:30? This ain't working. It's now 35 according to the Tempest. Yeah, less windy over here. Want to check the rain gauge. It did sleet for an hour yesterday. Oh, 0.98, and I forgot to empty it yesterday before another 0.06 came in. I emptied it later. We'll see that in the out the door weather and more. So a grand total of about 1.04 here by the ocean, but so many surprises last night. That's what you get when you have a rain-snow line. Last week it snowed all the way to the Berkshires when it wasn't supposed to snow at all. Whoops. Last night we had cyclogenesis. Low pressure that was in Michigan redeveloped near Long Island. And the surprise of the night, I think, the people in Connecticut with the thunderstorms. Thank you, Storm Chaser Justin, for getting the lightning shots and supplying them to us on Twitter this morning. That's convection, very cold air up in the sky, warm air near the ground, very close to the warm front, and that convection turned rain in Andover, Massachusetts. Jay Weather on Twitter, a new follow for me this morning. Love the enthusiasm of young future meteorologists. Reminds me of me. Anyhow, Jay says, oh my goodness, it's snowing 2 inches per hour. Are you kidding? About midnight, all of a sudden Andover comes in with 2 to 4 inches of snow in that burst. What was thunder in Connecticut turned into heavy snow that moved right over Cape Ann, and even in Gloucester. Pete says the DPW says over 1.5 inches of snow on the west side of Gloucester, the inland side of Gloucester. So the surprises have already started, and they're going to continue. How about this? T-Rex Media. Ski Media in Gunstock this morning. Thank you for sharing the big flakes falling pretty much straight down. Pretty unusual. The wind on Mount Washington at 7 a.m. was only 10 miles an hour with a temperature of 12. That's low barometer cold. When it's much colder up in the sky, that's instability. And now we have a lingering tail, the left-hand side of the T we talked about yesterday. There's a trough. And what that means is the wind from the northeast in Maine is meeting up with wind from the west in Connecticut this afternoon. And there will be some bursts of moderate to heavy snow. Impossible to predict where and when, but I'm thinking sitting right here in a few hours, I'll probably have some pretty good snow shower activity, or maybe even a band of snow. The temperature getting colder at all levels of the atmosphere. So it's just going to kind of go from rain to snow all of a sudden here at my house, probably between 10 and noon or so. So anybody is still vulnerable to a few more inches of snow. Jay Peak this morning started off with about 4 or 5 new, and the cam looked really good, even though there was very little on radar. So we're going to wring out every last drop of this H2O, and it's going to snow on and off through much of the region through sunset. Tomorrow, there's still some instability, but it's pretty dry air with high pressure, so I think tomorrow we're pretty good. How about some fantasy land? How about the Euro 3 to 5 day for Boston, showing us 12 degrees before the sun comes up on Sunday? No way is that going to happen. But you know that there is a colder air mass coming in, and that's thinking radiational cooling. Yeah, some spots make it down to the teens on Sunday morning. But the 14-day forecast is pretty interesting for Boston, showing that the 2 peaks there on the red on Monday and Wednesday Those are the days of greatest uncertainty. Those are the next two weather systems. Talk about watching the weather using a macroscope instead of a microscope. The macroscope shows cold air in Canada only briefly intruding to the northern plains and the Midwest and the Northeast, ahead of and behind each weather system coming at us Sunday, Monday. And then the next one looks more like Wednesday now. And then there may be another one after that. It doesn't look like the cold air wants to come in and stick around, though. So that's a change over the last couple of days from what we were thinking earlier, when it looked like we were going to get a direct shot of air from northern Quebec coming into New England, making us the coldest spot. Doesn't not look like that anymore, but we have a flow. This is my favorite flow in the wintertime. A ridge in Western Canada bringing air down from east of Alaska, and a trough, very deep trough in the southwestern United States bringing air from south of Hawaii. And when you have air from east of Alaska meeting up with air from south of Hawaii over the United States, and a ridge axis in the Bahamas and the trough axis over the Great Lakes, it just guarantees plenty of action. Here's the big picture Euro snowfall forecast. Oh, you can see the shape of the flow, and New England has the most snow forecast by the Euro in the next 10 days of, it looks like 20 to 30 inches in parts of central New England. I'll take the under on that, but the point is our ski areas are getting the goods finally. This is snow on bare ground in places like central Vermont and central New Hampshire. There was no snow on the ground yesterday, so we may actually have almost a climatological average snowpack by Groundhog Day. Plenty of action. We'll be calling the play-by-play. And as I'm just sitting here right now, I've had some slushy-looking raindrops. So it's going to be a very fun day. I'll do a snowcast today after my friend sent me some ski video. I don't know if I have anything from Ed Moore. I guess I have a little bit of sleet from yesterday afternoon and my rainfall forecast, which was not high enough. I'll look at the tide coming in. You can see where the tide went up yesterday. It's going to go even higher than that today. So a little coastal flooding at high tide. I call it marsh flooding. High tide when there's a new moon tomorrow. It's called the snow moon. We have a waxing snow moon next week. And if we could get a clear evening, Venus and Saturn very close together in the evening sky, and Mars and Jupiter up higher. So I think some of us rather have snow than that, but plenty to talk about. Okay, 8 minutes. Talk to you later. All right, a couple things. It started as rain, but now turned into ice balls. Not really accumulating, but kind of slippery. Yeah, it's slippery. More slippery than I thought it would be here. And I also forgot to empty the .02 out of the gauge this morning. So we're at .08, so I got to empty it now and then just add .06 to whatever we get tomorrow in the morning. And it is going to be warm enough, rather, that I can leave the gauge out without it freezing, frosting. It was about 38 when it started. Now it's down to about 33. I think it's just all sleet right now. I don't even really sense any rain. You can hear it. There's a minor coating on the ground. I'm going to put it in as a T. T of snow, trace of snow with the radar showing the T today. All right. That's all for now. I think once the wind picks up from the east, the temperature is going to go up enough, and the vertical profile also. It ends up being mostly rain. I'm guessing 0.7 in the gauge in the morning. How'd I do? Just after 4, just about sunset, and the rain changed to sleet. Briefly here in North Weymouth anyway. At least the forecast is briefly, but it's getting a little slick underfoot.